If there's any video game franchise people love to hate, it's Call of Duty. I was a toddler when this series launched, and there's no question it's come a long way, although some would argue it should have been put out of its misery years ago. That said, Modern Warfare 2 came from a time period in which the series was supposedly in its glory days, as in before advanced movement became a thing and had half the fan base ready to tear down Activision HQ piece by piece. So is this 2009 entry to the series still worth playing? Let's break it down and find out. Sit back, grab some popcorn or some whiskey if that's your thing, and get comfortable. Seeing as this game is over 10 years old, I'm sure most of you are already familiar with the story, at least to some extent. But for all 2 of you who aren't, I'll briefly recap it anyway. Skip to this point in the video if you want to cut straight to the analysis. The story begins with a recap of the previous game in the series, Call of Duty 4, which ended with Soap giving Imran Zakhaev a fresh new tattoo. We then head to a US military base in Afghanistan, taking control of Private Joseph Allen, who trains up some local fighters and completes a military training course as part of US Army General Shepard's search to find a skilled soldier to join his Special Operations Unit. After doing this, along with playing a key role in repelling an attack from hostile militia forces, Shepard recruits Allen into his new Special Operations Unit, Task Force 141, of which Captain Soap McTavish, a key character in Call of Duty 4, is a high-ranking member. Soap and fellow 141 member Gary Roach Sanderson are sent on a mission to recover an ACS module that crashed behind enemy lines, which contains vital information on US military systems. Soap and Roach get discovered after they locate the ACS, but they manage to escape by using some explosives as a distraction. Meanwhile, Private Joseph Allen has infiltrated infamous Russian terrorist Vladimir Makarov's terror cell under the pseudonym Alexei Borodin in order to gain information on Makarov's plans. Allen joins Makarov and his men in slaughtering hundreds of innocent Russian civilians at Zakhaev International Airport in Moscow. After the attack, Makarov shoots Allen and leaves his body at the scene so Russian authorities will find it and blame the attack on the United States. And I'm sorry, but I have to call bullshit on Makarov's plan. How in the hell did the Russian authorities not discover that Makarov was behind the attack? I get that he left behind Allen's body to frame the Americans, but this is a major international airport, meaning there have to be loads of security cameras. Am I really supposed to believe that none of them captured Makarov's face? I mean, Makarov is one of the most, if not the most wanted terrorist in Russia. His appearance is not a secret. So how the Russian authorities managed to fuck this up and not put 2 and 2 together is beyond me. Anyway, with Makarov making big moves, Shepard sends the 141 to Rio de Janeiro to capture Alejandro Rojas, a known associate of Makarov. At the same time, the Russian military launches a large-scale invasion of America as retaliation for the massacre at Zakhaev Airport, leading the US Army to scramble to defend the East Coast before it's completely overrun by Russian forces. The player assumes the role of Private James Ramirez, a US Army Ranger under the command of Sergeant Foley. The US forces engage the Russians in heavy fighting in northeastern Virginia, with battles raging in commercial districts as well as residential areas. Back in Brazil, Soap and the rest of the 141 are eventually able to capture Rojas and interrogate him, but they're unable to be evacuated due to the Russian invasion of the US swallowing all of the American Army's resources, forcing Soap to call in his Russian friend Nikolai to get the squad out. They learn from Rojas that there's one man Makarov hates more than anyone else on the planet, and that man is locked up in a gulag in Siberian Russia. The 141 captures a Russian oil rig hosting SAM sites to open a corridor to reach the gulag. They then assault the gulag to rescue Makarov's enemy, codenamed Prisoner 627, who turns out to be Captain John Price, Soap's commanding officer during the events of Call of Duty 4. Turns out, Price was captured during a mission to gather intel on Makarov several years ago and has been in the gulag ever since. Before they can leave, however, the US Navy bombs the gulag, resulting in the whole thing collapsing, and the group just barely manages to escape, at which point Price lets out my favorite line in the entire game. Back in America, the fighting has intensified and the capital is under siege from the Russians. Ramirez and the US Army Rangers help to defend the city, but their chopper is shot down during the fight, leading to them being encircled by a massive number of Russian soldiers, and the US troops appear destined to either be wiped out or captured. With Captain Price back in the fold, he conjures up a plan to hijack a Russian submarine and launch a nuke to create an EMP effect over the eastern coast of America to slow down the Russian invasion. His plan works pretty well, as the overwhelmed American troops in DC are given a reprieve when the EMP disables all electronics and sends Russian helicopters falling from the sky. The Rangers eventually work their way to the White House, which has been captured by Russian soldiers. Since the EMP detonation crippled communications within the American Army, US Army Command in Colorado assumes the capital has been lost to the Russians and sends in fighter jets to bomb the capital into oblivion. The Rangers are able to retake the White House and deploy flares on the roof to get the fighter pilots to abort their mission and not level the city. The Rangers take solace in their collective desire to burn down Moscow in revenge for the Russian invasion. Meanwhile, the escalation of the situation results in General Shepard being awarded a blank check by the US government, which he decides to spend hunting down and killing Makarov. Task Force 141 splits into two groups to search two probable locations for Makarov. Ghost and Roach head to Makarov's safe house along the Georgian-Russian border and extract a ton of information on Makarov's tactics and strategies. The majority of the 141 is killed while trying to reach the evac site, but Ghost and Roach are able to make it there. They hand over Makarov's information to General Shepard, who surprisingly shoots Ghost and Roach, has their bodies doused in gasoline, and burns them alive. Since Shepard's reputation was destroyed after he lost 30,000 soldiers courtesy of a nuke 5 years ago, he wants to kill Makarov himself to redeem his reputation and become a national war hero. Meaning Task Force 141 needed to be out of the picture since Shepard didn't want them around to take all the glory. Shepard sends his men to attack Soap and Price in Afghanistan, but the duo escapes death thanks to a last-second assist from Nikolai. Price coerces Makarov into revealing Shepard's location since Makarov knows he won't last long with Shepard having knowledge of all his plans. Price and Soap leap into a two-man suicide mission to kill General Shepard and avenge their fallen friends. After an intense chase, Soap tracks down Shepard and tries to stab him, but Shepard turns the tables on Soap and stabs him instead. Before Shepard can shoot Soap, Price arrives and attacks Shepard, resulting in a long fistfight that Shepard eventually wins. Before Shepard can beat Price to death, however, Soap pulls the knife Shepard stabbed him with out of his chest and throws it at Shepard. The blade goes through Shepard's eye and pierces his brain, killing him. Price wakes up sometime later and tends to Soap's wounds, and Nikolai eventually shows up to give the two a ride to safety. I'm not sure why Nikolai even showed up here, given that Price told him,
"I'll wait for you at the exfil point. 3 hours. Don't bother. This was a one-way flight, mate."
And I sure as hell have no idea how Nikolai knew Price and Soap would be in this exact location, but maybe one of you guys can make sense of that. Nikolai warns Price that he and Soap will be international fugitives due to killing Shepard, and the trio heads off to go into hiding and regroup. This story is pretty damn awesome, and it's probably my second favorite Call of Duty story, coming in behind only Call of Duty Black Ops. It has loads of extremely memorable scenes and situations, and unlike many other COD games, it actually gets you invested in the characters. There's a reason why so many gamers nearly lost their will to live when Shepard betrayed Ghost and Roach and left them to die as part of his grand scheme. Throughout the story, Shepard is portrayed as a hard-nosed and vindictive general, but not really the type to turn on the people supporting him. But Shepard does just that, and so it took so many people by surprise. And the best part about Shepard's betrayal is that while it's sad, it actually makes total sense once you understand the context of the story. He leaked Alan's identity to Makarov. He allowed the ACS module to fall into Russian hands. Also, he could start a war and claim the glory for leading the US to victory. Shepard is a villain to the core. He murdered his own soldiers, so there's no getting around that. But he's not a villain who killed his own men just because he woke up on the wrong side of the bed. His motivations actually make sense, and that's why he's such a great villain. The twist involving Shepard is the best part of the story, and it elevates the narrative from merely good to an amazing spectacle. It's not all sunshine and rainbows though when it comes to the story. My biggest issue with it has to be the pacing. I don't know about the rest of you, but I find it highly implausible that all of these events happened in a single week. I mean, you're telling me the Russians managed to assemble and deploy a transcontinental invasion force of millions of men in a single day? I don't care what anyone says, that is fucking impossible. And Captain Price spent years in a Russian gulag, but after he's rescued, he rejoins the group as if he was gone for a few days as opposed to a few years. Price is a tough bastard, I get that, but spending years in captivity like that would shake anyone's resolve, even his. And to bring up another point, how in the hell did the Russians gain ground so quickly after the invasion began? I know they cracked the ACS module and therefore were able to manipulate America's radar systems, but am I really supposed to believe that an invasion force of millions and a shitload of fighter jets made it all the way to the coastline and nobody noticed? Man, I like this story, but there's no question you have to suspend your disbelief quite a bit for some of this shit to make sense. Plot contrivances aside though, the story is really engaging, largely due to the set pieces I mentioned earlier. Escaping the Russian military base on snowmobiles, watching hundreds of civilians be slaughtered in a vile act of terrorism, house-to-house fighting in American suburbs, rescuing Price from the gulag, helicopters crashing to Earth after the EMP goes off, Shepard's shocking betrayal, chasing Shepard in a boat while hundreds of men shoot at you. This campaign has so many cool moments, and re-experiencing them felt like an amazing breath of fresh air. Even though I already knew what was going to happen, I still looked forward to seeing the events of the campaign unfold. And when you've got a story people are excited to play long after experiencing it for the first time, you've definitely done something right. In my book, the story is really damn close to being a masterpiece. If it didn't require so much suspension of disbelief regarding certain plot points, I'd probably consider it to be one. As it stands though, close but no cigar. There's only so much I can say to set up this portion of the video, because it's pretty clear what you're going to be doing here. It's a Call of Duty game and you have to shoot people. But the main question is, does Modern Warfare 2 do enough to keep you interested for the entirety of the time you spend shooting people? I'd say yes. Yes, it does. Many shooter games feature a gameplay loop that falls into an abyss of monotony courtesy of levels that go on too long, have repetitive structure, have enemies that take forever to kill, etc. But Modern Warfare 2 doesn't fall into these traps as so many other games do. It offers a campaign that understands what its potential is, and as a result it offers a memorable experience that doesn't drag out longer than it needs to, unlike some other shooter games I've played. The missions have great variety in terms of both locations and objectives. There are so many interesting places to see in this game, from freezing mountains to city suburbs to a massive oil rig to a creepy gulag, and so many more. It keeps the gameplay fresher because you don't spend all of your time in one environment, so you never feel like you're going around in circles. Additionally, each mission has a clear and concise goal that is easy to digest and is not vague or difficult to understand the importance of. You aren't going to finish a mission thinking, why the hell did I just do that? Because your shooting always has some value to the narrative. In other words, you aren't spending 20 minutes shooting people in a parking lot just for the sake of shooting people. Many of the missions also allow for quite a bit of freedom in terms of how you complete your objective. Maybe you want to take the most direct route to your target, or maybe you want to go slower and use more flanking opportunities. Not every mission in the game allows you to do this often, but there are plenty that do. There's not always one rigid path to take, and you have the ability to pick the strategy that makes the most sense to you. Oh wait, I guess I should talk about the guns for a while since, this is a first-person shooter game after all. Well, truth be told, I find the guns to be pretty satisfying to use overall. The weapons sandbox is large enough that you're pretty much guaranteed to find a weapon that fits your playstyle, whether you want to blow everyone away with a shotgun or pick enemies off from close range with a sniper rifle. My personal favorite is the Vector SMG since it shreds at close to medium range and has pretty low recoil compared to a lot of other guns. On the other hand, grenades could have used a buff. Every time I throw one, I wonder why I made that decision since I probably got 1 kill for every 10 grenades I threw. Their blast radius is god awful, and it definitely should have been increased, but I did thoroughly enjoy this campaign the whole way through despite marathoning it in 2 days for this review. It's one of the few COD campaigns I can actually come back to after some time away and still get some value out of a repeat playthrough. But as fun as this campaign is, it's not without its flaws and it definitely feels quite unpolished at times. I've got a few complaints here, so I'll just rip through them one by one. First, the weapon flinch is really extreme, and I'd argue it's too extreme. Getting shot even once can cause your gun to jump all over the place, making it damn near impossible to aim at anything, even at close range. Also, the more you get shot, the more you have to worry about being blinded by the massive amount of blood that shows up on the screen. When you're close to death, almost 50% of your screen will be obscured by blood. This is a good time to mention that while I played the campaign on PC, I used a controller since I can't operate a keyboard while gaming to save my life. I did, however, turn off aim assist for my playthrough, so going through the process of lining up a target only to miss every shot because my sights are jumpier than a grasshopper on steroids is pretty damn annoying. Second, what is going on with the spawning patterns of some of these enemies? There were so many times that enemies popped up behind me and I had no idea where they came from or how they got behind me so fast. This is a drawback of having more open-ended areas to fight in. You have more places to go, but you also have to watch 6 different approaches at a time, and even when you do that, enemies are still going to find a way to get behind you. It gets to be pretty bullshit sometimes. I wish I could say the enemies are the only victims of poor scripting in this game, but your allies are also victims to this unfortunate disease. Your AI companions all have scripted paths to take, which makes sense. What doesn't make sense is that these paths are not adaptable to the player's behavior at all. Your companions are going to remain on their scripted path whatever the cost, so don't be surprised when you start walking through a doorway only to get shoved into a wall face first because one of your companions decided to walk through at the same time. It's a bit of an immersion killer because your companions don't really seem to acknowledge your existence half the time, unless they're yelling at you regarding what you need to do next, that is. Look, Activision, I know you don't want players to be confused about how to proceed, but when I have an entire squad to follow and an on-screen mission marker, and a pause menu I can use to see the next objective, I don't need NPCs yelling in my ear every 15 seconds telling me what to do next.
Ramirez, we still got hostiles near the Predator town. We need to move. Ramirez, we need to move rapid now. Clear that restaurant. Ramirez, use the remote control Predator missiles. We got incoming infantry. Keep them away from Predator town.
It becomes really fucking annoying after a while. None of these critiques made me want to put the game down and take a break, but holy shit, I rolled my eyes more than a few times because of these things. I'm sure you've noticed this by now, but I'm playing the remastered version of this campaign, which retails at $20, which I think is a fair price, seeing as this game, while a good product, is not a new product. And the remaster does make a lot of quality of life improvements to the game. In the original version, Roach was a total mute. In the remastered version, he's, well, still a mute, but he does grunt and make other noises when it's appropriate for the situation, so I can confirm Roach does in fact have a voice box. It's not much, but it's something. I'm not really a fan of silent protagonists in video games. To me, it usually comes off as an excuse for writers to not create an interesting main character and pass that off as some sort of 300 IQ artistic choice. But this is certainly not the worst example of that trend I've seen. On a more positive note, there are actual animations for common movements in the game where they didn't exist previously. Your character actually falls over when an explosion happens nearby, unlike in the original where there was just a weird grayish screen effect. And you actually climb over objects when mantling rather than looking like you're walking on air as in the original game. The remaster doesn't really overhaul the core of the game since Modern Warfare 2 already had a really good core. But for every quality of life change that was implemented, there was an obvious one that was overlooked. Climbing ladders is still a pain in the ass because you don't physically grab onto the ladder, rather you just levitate in front of it. Also, you can't adjust sound levels in this game, such as those for dialogue, sound effects, and music individually. All you get is a master volume control. Being able to tweak these individual audio levels to your liking is pretty much a staple in modern titles, and there's honestly no excuse for why you can't do it in this game. After hearing gunshots ringing in your ears for a few hours, you really want to turn down the sound effects volume, but if you do that, you won't be able to hear what anyone is saying since you have no control over the individual volume levels. I know some of these things seem like really small nitpicks, but if you're going to do a remaster and charge people money for it, you really should fix these things. This kinda goes without saying, but the remaster does look like a gem. Everything from the characters' faces to the textures to shadows to weapons, everything looks great here. I might have my issues with the gameplay, but the game knocks it out of the park when it comes to visuals. Doesn't make you feel any better when enemies teleport behind you and proceed to shove a few bullets up your ass, but it does help you forget the pain for a little while. Not every game in this series is great, there's no question about that. There's a reason why no Call of Duty game is coming in 2023. Even Activision can't dismiss the issues with this series anymore. But Modern Warfare 2 is a damn good entry. It's not without faults, but I don't think any of them have a lasting effect on how enjoyable the game is, despite how much I ranted about some of them earlier. Modern Warfare 2's campaign earns an 8 out of 10. I'd even recommend this game to people who aren't really Call of Duty fans, which is not something I do for a lot of other games in the series. It has a strong narrative with varied and interesting gameplay, and most importantly, finishing it provides a strong sense of accomplishment. Seeing that knife go through Shepard's eye never gets old. Hey everyone, thanks for watching my review of Modern Warfare 2. I'm not a Call of Duty fanboy by any stretch, but I really wanted to give this game a fair shake. If you like the review, it'd be totally cool of you to subscribe or comment or like the video or something like that. You know, all of those typical YouTuber things that will help my channel grow and stuff. Or don't, that's entirely your call. Thanks again for watching, see you next time.